When I drove back to my mountain cabin after 7 long years, I expected silence, pine trees, and peace. Instead, a bright red "For Sale" sign was planted in my driveway. My name was still on the deed, but the HOA chairwoman swore it was hers. That day, my homecoming turned into a war. 2. The return almost equals 200 words. The road to Pine Ridge hadn't changed much. Same rusted mailboxes, same faded gas station sign clinging to life beside the mountain road. I left the city behind for good that morning. 7 years gone, most of them spent caring for my mother as her memory faded away. When she passed, I promised myself I'd return to the only place that ever felt like mine. As my truck climbed the last hill, I caught the first glimpse of the cabin. Rough cedar walls, a porch leaning slightly like it was tired of waiting. The pines swayed around it, whispering the same old songs I'd missed. But something about the air felt wrong. The lawn was too perfect. Fresh gravel lined the driveway. The mailbox gleamed with new white paint, and the porch steps I'd built years ago had been replaced. I killed the engine, listening to the silence. No birds, no wind, just that uneasy stillness that makes you feel watched. Then I saw it. Right at the center of my driveway stood a bright red sign. For sale by HOA. That's when I realized someone had been living my life while I was gone. 3. The sign and the showdown almost equals 250 words. I was still staring at that sign when I heard the crunch of footsteps on gravel. A woman appeared from nowhere, clipboard in hand, posture sharp enough to cut glass. "Are you the owner of this property?" she asked, voice like a teacher scolding a child. "Yeah," I said, holding on my keys. "Got the deed right here." Her smile didn't move past her teeth. "This is community property now. You abandoned it for 7 years. Under HOA regulation, it falls under management jurisdiction." "I didn't abandon anything," I said. "My mother was sick. I can show you paperwork." She waved her clipboard like it was gospel. "Personal circumstances don't override community standards, Mr. Brooks. Rules are rules." That name hit me like a cold hand. She already knew who I was. "I'm Victoria Petton," she added, standing taller. "Chairwoman of the Pine Ridge Homeowners Association. This entire street operates under our governance." I tried not to laugh. "Lady, I bought this land before there was even a street sign here." Her eyes hardened. "This is my street," she snapped, and for a heartbeat, I saw something unhinged behind her polished smile. The mountains echoed her words like they didn't believe her either. That's when I knew this wasn't confusion. It was a takeover. 4. Escalation. The harassment almost equals 250 words. The next morning, the war began. A yellow notice flapped on my porch. Violation. Unauthorized modifications. Another was taped to my truck windshield. Vehicle obstructing sightlines. By noon, I'd received 3 more, each more ridiculous than the last. That night, I heard a low mechanical hum outside. When I stepped onto the porch, a drone hovered 20 feet above me, its blinking lights aimed straight at my window. I threw a pine cone at it. The next morning, another fine appeared. Aggressive behavior toward HOA monitoring equipment. I walked over to my neighbor's house, Mrs. Henderson, the one who used to bake cookies and gossip about everyone. Her curtains were drawn tight. When I knocked, she cracked the door an inch. "Please," she whispered, "don't get involved. She's always watching." Then the door shut before I could ask more. That night, my power went out. The main breaker box had been padlocked shut. I sat in darkness, watching shadows move just beyond the tree line. This wasn't bureaucracy, it was pressure applied with surgical precision. And whoever Victoria really was, she wasn't just running an HOA. She was running a siege. 5. The investigation almost equals 250 words. The next morning, I drove straight to the county courthouse. The clerk looked at me like she'd seen this movie before. "Pine Ridge HOA," she said, typing fast. "You're not the first one asking." She printed a page and slid it across the counter, blank where the registration should have been. "There's no record of them ever being incorporated," she said. My stomach dropped. I asked for more records, and she handed me trust filings. At the bottom of every document was the same signature, Victoria Pedon. She wasn't enforcing anything. She was fabricating everything. An entire fake homeowners association, funneling money and property back into her personal accounts. I drove to Bob Martinez's trailer, a retired Army vet who'd lived here for decades. The moment I mentioned her name, he slammed his beer on the table. "She's been forcing people out for years," he said. "Calls it community improvement. Fines them until they give up, then buys their homes for pennies." He showed me a box of violation slips, each stamped with the same fake HOA logo. "She's turning them into vacation rentals," he added. "Half the cabins on this ridge aren't owned by neighbors anymore. They're hers." That's when I decided. If Victoria wanted a fight, she was about to get one. 6. The trap. Public exposure almost equals 250 words. I set up motion cameras around my cabin using gear from my photography business. 3 nights later, they caught exactly what I needed. Victoria herself, flashlight in hand, trying to pry open my back door with 2 men in tow. The footage showed her pointing at my locks, taking photos of my upgrades, planning to cite them as violations. She didn't realize the camera above her was recording every move. With the evidence secured in the cloud, I reached out to the same reporter Bob had mentioned, a woman investigating HOA scams across Colorado. We planned everything, a public confrontation during Victoria's upcoming community cleanup day. Saturday morning, the field filled with neighbors, volunteers, and county officials. Victoria strutted in wearing a white blazer and her trademark smile. She started her speech about revitalizing Pine Ridge, waving charts and claiming property values had never been higher. Then I stepped forward. "Let's talk about those values," I said, handing the deputy a flash drive. The big screen flickered to life. Infrared footage of Victoria breaking into my cabin. The crowd gasped. Victoria's face drained of color. The deputy's voice stayed calm. "Ma'am, please step to the side." Her microphone screeched as she shouted, "This is my street." The same line that started everything. But this time, nobody believed her. 7. Resolution and moral almost equals 200 words. By sunset, the sheriff's department had seized her records and shut down her fake HOA. Within weeks, the county restored ownership to every resident she'd targeted. Victoria was charged with fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. Her empire crumbled overnight. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years came together again. Bob reopened his workshop. Mrs. Henderson finally opened her curtains, and Emma, the single mother Victoria had almost evicted, planted new flowers in her yard. Pine Ridge felt alive again. Not perfect, but real. I stood on my porch, watching kids laugh where silence used to live. The old "Red for Sale" sign still leaned against a fence, half buried in gravel. I left it there, a reminder of how close we came to losing everything. Victoria thought silence made us weak. But the moment we started talking, she lost everything. If something like this ever happens in your town, remember this. Write everything down. Talk to your neighbors. Connect the dots. That's how fear loses its grip, when ordinary people decide to stand up together.